Hello, this video is on something that a term I've used before, professionalitis. And I just wanted to sort of expound on that term. You may have seen me use it in on Facebook or on Twitter or in the comments below. And you may have heard this term in other ways. You may have heard it called other things, Ivory Tower Syndrome, Academitis, things like that, Academitis. And this is just a real simple concept. The concept is that someone gets so full of themselves via their education or experience that clearly no one else can possibly be right but them or someone who can prove that they are in fact as good as them with letters after their name. You see it an awful lot with doctors or professional chefs, dumb professional chefs, not good ones. Bobby Flay has been been said to have doctors, lawyers, chefs, anybody like that, mechanics sometimes, engineers, anybody like that. And what it is it's the belief that your skill, your experience is so good and of such quality that nobody else can possibly be right. A good example, I was talking to a doctor recently and I asked him offhand if he happened to know how much a particular blood test was, a test for thyroid stimulating hormone. It's a very common test. And he said, and I said, the reason why I want to know is I want to get one. As I've said, I have a thyroid disorder, and it was coming time. It's coming time for me to get a blood test. I asked anyone who knows who has hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism or anything to do with the endocrine system, you got to get regular blood tests. But I haven't had one in a year because I'm poor. So I said, and I told him all this. I said, how much are they? And he said, I don't know. And he said, but you really should get it. It's very important. You see, the thyroid is the one, the gland above all, the endocrine system is. And he goes on this lecture about how important it is and how much it's going to affect me and this and that and the other thing. And I'm going, yeah, doc, I sort of lived through it. I have firsthand experience in exactly what hypothyroidism is like and how important it is. I've lived this. This is why I'm asking you about the test so I can get it, so that I can continue getting medically treated properly. But I tried to stop him and he was like, how dare you? And he got really, really upset with me. And I just let him finish. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever, fuck off. And it was a perfect case of professionalitis. Another example, I'm going to use examples that I know, so several of them will be from my own life. A neurologist I ran into after I got my head injury, and a couple, actually, it's 3 years this September. Uh, he he was the one who ordered the blood test that ended up showing that I was that ended up linking to another, said doctor said to give me a blood test. Anyway, he ordered the blood test that set in motion the events that got me diagnosed with hypothyroidism. He ignored that blood test, by the way, because it didn't fit in with his narrative. Here's another thing. He had never heard of Asperger's syndrome. This is 2013. He had never heard of Asperger's syndrome, but he was absolutely sure it would not interfere with the reporting of a concussion or a mild traumatic brain injury or the symptoms thereof. Oh, and hypothyroidism can't possibly interfere with how you report these symptoms. Well, hypothyroidism can cause depression. Moderate traumatic brain injury can cause depression. Okay, Asperger's, if your life is shitty, because let's admit it, some of us, our lives are shitty, can cause depression. These were three things that can all cause the same symptom. So it's very important to figure out, A, if I have it, and B, what's causing it. Let's see. Asperger's can't cause lethargy. But traumatic brain injury can cause lethargy. So can hypothyroidism. Depression can cause weight gain. So can a brain injury. So can hypothyroidism. There were all these little symptoms and signs that could be caused by multiple different issues I may or may not be suffering. And it was important to figure out, okay, were these two adding up? Were they causing a bigger issue? Was one issue being caused by one thing? It was important to know. He ignored the hypothyroidism. He ignored the Asperger's syndrome because it didn't fit with his narrative of the traumatic brain injury. He didn't want to consider new data because, don't you understand, he knew more than everybody else, even if that meant that he was ignoring the inconvenient facts. Professionalitis does this. Professionalitis is a form of arrogance. It is a form of arrogance by saying, I know more than all of you and I'm going to ignore you and what you want because you just are too stupid or too uneducated, they'll think perhaps both, to know what I'm talking about. Now, you may make these people very, very, very angry if they have a severe case of professionalitis by being truly educated. Even if you're not an expert, you're a complete newbie to the subject, but you studied, you researched. And being intelligent. Being intelligent and being trained in logic. You can go, okay, so this, these link, boom. And you'll just ask questions that they can't answer. Oftentimes you'll hear these people go, that's an unimportant question, because they can't answer it. You see, if they can't answer it, clearly it's unimportant, because they know all the important things. Professionalitis abounds. Now, why does this matter? Because it gets in the way of proper learning. It gets in the way of proper self-advocacy. I'm not talking about the guy who's suffering. Ignore him for the moment. Or the girl. Ignore them. I'm talking about the patient. You. I'm talking about you. And you have to self-advocate. You have to know. Not everybody's going to know everything, but you can go, hey, doc, you know, I'm not an expert on this, but I read that this journal has some information. Maybe this makes sense to you, you know. Or, you know, I'm not an expert, but I did some research and I found these 5 articles. One of them's got to have something useful to the both of us. One moment. One of them's got to have something useful to this issue. And that's what it means. It means it will get in the way because they'll ignore you. You don't know anything. What could you know? You're not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. You're not an engineer. You're not a chef. Clearly, you can't add anything to the conversation. This will fuck you up. This will fuck you over. This will just fucks everything. And now, why do they have it? Because they worked really hard in their field. They're really smart. They know a lot. They studied hard to get where they are. They put in their dues. They paid their dues. They worked. They put in the blood, sweat, and tears. They gave up on life. And they have to feel like that's worth something. So they're above the rest of us. You know, it's the old joke. Dr. Goldstein dies and goes to heaven. And, you know, he goes up to the front and St. Peter's like, hey, how you doing? And he goes, hey, I knew St. Peter, Gabriel, this Jewish guy. Gabriel is going to let him in. And he goes, well, you got to get in the back of the line. And he says, what? I don't have to get in the back of the line. I don't understand. I am Dr. Goldstein, the world's premier cardiologist. I am awesome. I am a doctor. I've done all this stuff. You have to let me in. And he goes, yeah. Up here in heaven, everyone's equal. You're the equal of the guy who sweeps the streets. You're the equal of the soldier. You're the equal of the baker. You're the equal of the butcher. You're the equal of the candlestick maker. Get your ass in the back of the line. And he does. And a little while later, this short Jewish guy comes up in a trench coat. And he walks up. And he goes right up to Gabriel. And Gabriel goes, after you, doctor. And Dr. Goldstein gets incensed, and he runs up, and he says, what? How dare you let him in? What? Why? What? What's going on here? And he goes, whoa, calm down, calm down. That was God. Sometimes he likes to pretend he's a doctor. You see, Goldstein has professionalitis. Don't let a doctor, don't let a nurse, don't let anybody who suffers from this or ivory tower disorder, that's for academics in their ivory tower who get to ignore the inconvenient truths of reality, or academitis, you are just a student, you don't know anything. Don't let any of them get in the way of you getting what you need to get through this life. Okay, don't be so arrogant that you think you know more than them. But if something doesn't seem right, fight. Just like I did. I wouldn't have gotten treated for hypothyroidism if I hadn't looked at that blood test and said, hey, my TSH levels are way off. This test itself says they should be between here, and they're here. This isn't right. Ah, that's nothing. So I went to my regular doctor and I went, hey doc, is this okay? Look, and she went, whoa, this is bad because they should be between here, and they're over here. We got to do something about this. And I started getting treatment. You are your own self-advocate. So don't stand for professionalitis, and if you ever happen to find yourself suffering from it, pull your head out of your ass. Have a good night.